Welcome back to the Always Aggressive podcast, season 3, kicking off right now. We're dropping our 3 bombs here. Wrong sport, but right season. Fellas, great to have you. I'm Cory. That's Tanner. That's Coach, and we are excited to get this thing cranked back up after a short summer, but hopefully a really good summer. We'll talk about the summer a little bit later on. Speaking of good things, we're going to kick off the show talking about the Olympics in Tokyo. That was a very good thing.
I heard there was some really important wrestling going on for a while there.
Yeah, no doubt. And a lot of fun and a lot of great coverage of it as well. Very impressed with NBC. We'll give them, their plaudits as the show unfolds. But overall, it's the biggest stage in the sport, and it was really good to see USA wrestling perform so well in Tokyo.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. You spoke about the coverage. The only thing bad about it was there was so much that you got very little sleep, right? I mean, you started late.
The timing was brutal.
Yeah, you watched the early rounds, and then you're up early in the morning again at like 5 a.m. to watch for 3 more hours. I was crushed by the end of the week. Just so happy though that the men and women of USA Wrestling made it easy to watch. Because there was so much going on and so much success generally that it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, the time schedule was brutal. It would start at 10 p.m. Eastern. Watch till about midnight, and then pick back up at 5:15 a.m. So this is the byproduct of having the Olympics on the other side of the world.
Right.
Luckily, the next couple should be a little bit more reasonable. But then we'll go back. We'll have to do that again in 2032 when they go to Australia. So good times.
Just testing your commitment, really. That's all it is.
Yeah, 100%.
That's right.
And I am not going to lie. I skipped a lot of the semifinals. In fact, I skipped all of the semifinals because 5:15 is not in my wheelhouse. But yeah, luckily the replays were all online and you could watch and no, like Cory said, hats off to NBC for having that all available. And the digital streaming age is definitely good for all of us.
For sure.
No doubt.
And as somebody who does digital streaming for a living, love hearing that. Normalize it as much as possible. We need
Take it from Cory.
We're keeping Cory employed, ladies and gentlemen. This is what it's about. So let's start off with the women. They had an incredibly successful performance. Sent 6 over there. 4 came home. Did 4 come home with medals? Is that right?
4 came home with medals. Yep.
With a gold, a silver, 2 bronze. Really impressive for Coach Steiner and his crew. Just a really impressive. And this is coming from somebody I haven't watched a lot of women's wrestling. It's an NCAA emerging sport.
Mm-hmm.
It is really coming onto the scene more and more. We have a lot of really young, talented women who are establishing themselves and coming up through the ranks. Especially they just left, the junior world team just left for Russia, and there's some really talented young women on that. In fact, one from Indiana, and but getting to watch them compete at that level for me personally was pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I think the fun part about the Olympics is it's always a matter of timing for these Olympic sports, because we talk about they're training behind the scenes for 4 years, right? In this case, 5 years to get to this point, and then you've got to have the result. You've got to capture the moment. And so for somebody like Tamira Mensah-Stock, right? Like a lot of people know about her personality and her energy, right? It's just kind of an infectious, positive person, but she showed the whole world in a huge moment what that is, and I think she's really going to be able to capitalize on that, as will women's wrestling, right? I mean, that was a big moment for not only her but women's wrestling, and so you have somebody who has that kind of charisma, who owns the limelight that can now capitalize on it. Adeline Gray, probably a bit of a disappointment for her, right? I mean, as good as she's been, to not win an Olympic title. Although, hey, silver is awesome. I'm not saying she didn't perform well. All kudos to her. But I'm sure, she was, viewed as the gold medalist coming out of that. But such a smart person, great representative of the sport, right? So you have, some great representatives of Team USA that really captured the moment quite nicely. And all of the women did. They all did a great job and represented themselves very well. So proud of what they did. Coach Steiner, he's been doing a great job for years. So awesome to see them continue to kind of move forward with progress.
And I think two cool notes. You talked about Adeline Gray taking silver. I thought her interview after losing the gold medal match was something that everyone should aspire to. Yep. She handled it with such grace and such class. And was so appreciative for the opportunity and the fact that she brought an Olympic medal home. Like that's incredible, And so I was incredibly impressed by her. And then the personality in Tamira Mensah-Stock and what she is going to be a superstar. I mean, and that's saying that she's not one already, which is ludicrous considering she just won a gold medal. But I mean, she is a media darling and is amazing. I read somewhere that in the 24 hours after her gold medal match that she picked up like 100,000 followers on Instagram or something like that. It was unreal. Like you talked about the social media boom and all that stuff that goes with it. Her marketability, we're in the NIL age, like it went from here to here, like just, overnight. And so I thought that was just incredible. And she's going to be a phenomenal ambassador for the sport, not just for women's wrestling, just for wrestling, period. She's fantastic.
No, I think you're right. And that's the great thing about it is you have tremendous people at the forefront right now of the sport. It's kind of like having Jordan, what Jordan, was and is, and we all saw his coverage too, right? People who represent the sport in such a way that it's just really promotes it in a very positive light. And these women, Tamira, Adeline in particular, have done it very well, and I'm sure we'll continue to do it. I know the other thing too is we've got a couple of girls, right? Kayla and Sarah with Indiana connections. Even Sarah Hildebrandt, who had the bronze medal. Brad Harper up at Penn High School has been her coach, her personal coach for a number of years. So to see her medal and with Brad with his Urban Swirl shirt on there. I got to say that I talked to him this morning, just congratulating him and checking to see, how he's doing now that he's back. But yeah, he's always a ball of energy. And so it was nice to see the Indiana connections as well, representing themselves and doing well in the moment too. Those are girls that'll, going to be there for the foreseeable future as well.
For sure. For those that don't know, Brad Harper is a Purdue wrestling alum. Really cool to see him. And it was really funny. Like he made the most of his coverage of Urban Swirl. You know what I mean? Like the camera was on him a bunch up in the stands. And he was, like you said, he's a ball of energy. The guy was up there supporting everybody from the men, the women, the Greco, the freestyle, everybody. And he must have packed 7 or 8 different Urban Swirl shirts because they were different colors and he was really he was taking advantage of that free publicity.
Yeah, no doubt. And so that's fun, right? Like you just see, and we've had a lot of Indiana representatives on world teams and Olympic teams now here. So that is exciting for the sport of wrestling in the state of Indiana as well. And so I just can't say enough about, again, kind of the momentum they've created, and we're appreciative of their efforts to do so.
Absolutely. Let's transition to
before we move on from the women, Tony, you talked on it a little bit. Tanner, you mentioned that women's wrestling is an emerging sport in the NCAA and really trying to get some traction there. Do you think that this can be the launching pad for something big? If not this, then what? With personalities like this and these kinds of women performing so well on the world's biggest stage, can this really do more than anything to elevate the sport of women's wrestling in America?
I think the timing's right. I do. So you're just incredibly hopeful that it can, and you're starting to believe in what it is, because as I said, it's all about timing. You need the opportunity, right? Tamira needed the opportunity, and she came through and performed well. And now who she is, the whole world gets to see that. Same for all of these women, right? So it's always timing. So again, it's another moment, another opportunity where you feel like, boy, they came through in a big way, and you hope this is the springboard forward for everyone. The only thing that keeps me in limbo about it, right, where you would say, what could slow it down is you're coming out of COVID and everybody's trying to recover a bit, right, financially. And there's just a lot going on in college athletics that you just don't know, right? So the environment's the only thing that keeps me from saying you're going to see all of these teams popping up. That part, because there's a fiscal element to it, you don't know. We'll see as things continue to recover and get back to normal. But certainly, I think they've really done well in the moments they've had to put themselves in position to do it.
And I think, you talk about the fiscal element, and the difficulties of the situations in college athletics right now. But the other side of it is, if you've already got a men's program, I don't see women's wrestling as a huge financial commitment for a department. It's a fairly low budget sport. Mm-hmm. Especially if you've already got mats, if you've already got, the room, if you've already got some of these facilities in place for a men's team, you're looking at, scholarships are obviously expensive. You got to have salaries for your coaches, but when you're looking at equipment and facilities, like it's a low investment. I think it's got a lot of potential.
No doubt. No, massive potential. We've just got to have some people start to kind of, be the first.
Yep.
Especially
for sure.
At Division I level. You've seen the growth, right, at the lower, smaller level school institutions where, it's enrollment driven, right? You need to have some of these larger D1 institutions who are not as dependent on enrollment at such a high level to really take the leap and make a push forward.
Absolutely. Let's transition to Greco. USA did not perform as well as in Greco as they did in the freestyle events. But it's an interesting conversation. There's been a lot of talk about it on a lot of different channels. Ersland and I have had some arguments here in the office regarding it. Me being the basketball guy, he likes to yell at me and tell me, "Well, you just don't understand Greco." And it's like, no, you're right, I don't. But it's an interesting position for the U.S. and for the sport.
No doubt. And listen, I even, I joke here now because I tell you don't understand Greco. Listen, I don't completely understand Greco either. I'm not an expert in Greco. I appreciate the aspects of Greco, right? The hand fighting and positional things that come along and that can make a complete wrestler. So I appreciate that, from the sense of the sport. But being an expert in Greco by no means, I certainly don't understand the finer points of Greco. I know we're all searching when you come out and you don't, win at the level you need to or want to. There's always lots of questions, for the Greco coaches in the program. And at the end of the day, I know we've got hardworking coaches. I know a lot of those guys, they put in the hours, they're working their tail off, and they're doing everything they can to push Greco forward. So I'm not really sure kind of what the answer is. The main thing you can point to is we spend so much of our time in folk style here, which is completely different. It's a different sport. And even freestyle mirrors those tactics and techniques a lot closer than Greco. So you're at a point where, we're just behind, right? A lot of times we're behind in experience and techniques and years of wrestling Greco. And how do we make up that time? And that's where I don't have an answer. And I would be hesitant to point a finger at anybody because from what I know, these guys work their tail off. They're very hardworking, dedicated to their craft people. And so, I will leave them to think about where they can make their improvements and how to make the jumps that they need to have the medals they work so hard for.
For sure. My issue was, and this is the conversation I had earlier with Tony, was the fact that I've seen fun Greco. I've seen the clips online, Flo posts some, Track posts some, you see, guys lifting each other and throwing them in the air and so on and so forth. And it can be a really cool sport. It was not in this Olympics. There were not a lot of points from neutral. It turned into a gut wrench competition. I think Willie Saylor said that on Twitter at one point. And so that, I tried to watch it a couple times and it wore me out. I was like, nah, this isn't something I'm, especially at 5:15 in the morning. I'm not trying to get up and watch that. I was more apt to watch the women or watch the men's freestyle.
Well, I think the forced parterre, right, was designed to put points on the board. I mean, that's what it was designed to do. I think we'd all like to see a little more action from the feet in terms of attacks, throws, and those things. But my understanding is they put the forced parterre in to create the exciting lifts and opportunities for points. You just didn't see as many of those maybe as maybe what they expected. The techniques and tactics change all the time from year to year in the way countries approach winning. I mean, remember, their job is to win. Mm-hmm. They're not thinking about how can I make this as necessarily, I guess, most exciting for the fans. They're thinking about how can I get my hand raised within the rules that I'm given. And so, I think, they're changing their tactics, and now maybe UWW have to find ways to force guys to create action that's going to appeal to the fans, appeal to the masses. But there was some good action. I mean, Tanner and I were joking. What was it? Snoop Dogg and Kevin Hart doing commentary during the Greco match. There was a lift and a cartwheel. You know what I mean? And if we could play it, I would, because I'd be crying hysterically again.
Oh, man.
But for anybody out there, go to Tanner. Can you tell these people how to see it? Because I think they need to go watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can Google it or what, but it's out there. There's a segment where Snoop and Kevin Hart are, they're giving commentary on a Greco-Roman match, and it is tear-inducing. Like it is funny. And there's my suggestion, Tony. You ready for my suggestion on how to make Greco more watchable?
Go ahead.
Let's let Kevin Hart and Snoop commentate. Let's do
I'm
that.
sorry, I stole your idea. You're right.
I'm telling you, I would watch. If those dudes could make me laugh like that during every Greco match, I'm watching.
Yeah. No, the dialogue was awesome. I was crying before they were done.
Oh, it's unreal. That's unreal. Cory, have you seen it?
I have. I was amazed those two could keep it family friendly for 3 minutes. No, that was a great segment that NBC did throughout the Olympics. It touched wrestling special with that Greco match. That was amazing.
The equestrian one was funny too. I don't know if you guys saw that one.
Yes.
I'll have to find that for Tony too. There's an equestrian one that's pretty entertaining.
See, and I love the horses too. I watched a lot of equestrian going off track here. I watched a lot. I'm kind of an Olympic junkie though. So,
Me too.
Man, I watched the dressage, which is basically dancing horses. You know what I mean? I watched the cross country event jumping. I mean, I did it all. So I'm telling you, I'm glad the Olympics are over, because it really beat me up from a sleep standpoint.
Yeah, I can. If you're watching equestrian, then yes, it did.
Yes, it did.
So, last and certainly not least, USA had an incredible freestyle showing. We qualified 5 weights. Did everybody come home with a medal?
Everybody medaled, buddy.
All
5. All 5.
That's pretty impressive. I mean,
those nine between the men and the women.
Mm-hmm.
So
9.
It was I think the cool part for me was having seen most, if not all, of these guys, over my last 15 years wrestle collegiately, for their various institutions. And but yeah, it was pretty amazing to watch all those guys fight their way onto the podium.
Mm-hmm.
No, I tell you what, very impressive performance as well. You talk about the women, and then the men, equally as impressive. It was awesome. I thought Thomas Gilman looked very strong, aggressive. He's always been in shape and aggressive, but he was really after his points and scoring maybe a little more points than I've seen him in the past. And so that was impressive.
I was really impressed with Gilman's Peaky Blinders haircut. personally. That was me. But he was an animal.
See, I don't even watch Peaky Blinders.
Oh,
so
man.
now you used a reference I can't even draw from.
Don't get
Can't
sucked
help
in.
Don't. I won't come
Don't-
out.
oh, it's so
can't help
good,
you.
but man,
Yep. But yeah, no, it was good. I mean, what can you say about last second victories as well, right? I mean,
Ooh.
that was the big thing. I mean,
Historic moments.
yeah, how Gable Stevenson, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of debate, right? I don't even know if it's debate because I fall on the side, I agree. The rules don't permit him to let that guy up. You know, the official keep him down, right? That's been the rule, but
It happened.
and my man did not waste the opportunity, did he?
Can't undo it.
Advantage. Yep. And I think, the funny thing is, maybe a lot of athletes can learn from the Georgian, where I don't think he got himself back together quick enough.
No.
Because if you see, he gave up the takedown, and in his mind, he's like, okay, I'm going to finish on parterre. He will not turn me. I'm more comfortable down here D'ing up, and I won't get turned. Clock will expire. And when the official put him up, you saw him look up at the official like, what are you doing, really? Like, no, I'm supposed to be down. And I don't think mentally he got back in to the moment, like, I'm supposed to be wrestling again. He was still stunned, like, wow, I should still be down. What are you doing? And he never got himself back together, and Gable took advantage. So I think there's something there for a lot of young wrestlers to learn. Like, you got to prepare in those ways because you just never know.
it almost felt like he was resigned to that, when Gable got that last shot, in the closing seconds. I won't say the dude gave up, but it didn't feel like he was doing all he could to fend off the shot. He was waiting for the clock to expire.
Yeah, he was definitely waiting. And like I said, I
He
think
couldn't move fast enough.
No.
he didn't think he should be on his feet. I don't think he ever recovered.
Yeah.
He gave up the takedown and thought, I'm going to D up down here in parterre, and Gable will not turn me, and finish as Olympic champ. And when he got brought up, boy, he didn't get into the moment again. He was not ready to wrestle on his feet. And you're right. It looked too easy, too easy. But hey, in that moment, it's could have also been easy for Gable to be like, 1 second left, I've lost, it's not mine. And he believed.
He didn't.
I mean, he believed. He ran it down and got on top with about 0.6, maybe. It was under a second.
Yeah, I thought it was more like 2.
2 tenths.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. So props to Gable. And then clearly, like, Taylor,
David, yeah, wow.
At the end as well. Like, that just, shows you why they are who they are. They're going to wrestle the whole time. They're going to use the full 6 minutes, and they're going to believe in what they're doing. So it's a lot of fun to see that.
Yeah, no, I thought, David Taylor, again, you talk about a guy, got to watch him up close and personal for a lot of years, and then to watch him go out there and, it's been a crazy journey for him, and the fact that, he was just, he's at 74 behind Burroughs for years and couldn't break through, and, moved up to 86, and that's where he's got, that's where he won his gold.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing about Kyle Dake, kind of a tweener at the Olympic weight level stage, and also couldn't break through because of JB, and to stay that disciplined for a decade, to say, okay, my time's going to come. Yeah, I'm going to get my opportunity. And then, the gut wrenching loss that he had, having to wait to see if he was going to get back. But, he still came home with some hardware.
He did.
Phenomenal mental fortitude.
And it's interesting to me, Tony, because like when Dake lost, you're looking at the bracket and you're like, man, he's not going to get to wrestle for a medal. Chamizo's right there. He's going to be in the finals. He's going to wrestle Sidikoff for the gold, like type of deal. Like, you'd kind of resign yourself to the idea of like, oh man, like what happened? And then sure enough, the guy that beat Kyle turned around and beats Chamizo. And so it was a crazy moment.
It just goes to show though, right? How competitive the world is. There are so many good wrestlers out there. You just can't ignore, that anybody's a lock. You know what I mean? And with the lack of and now they do have separation with the lack of seating, right? And how that really works. I mean, it's not really true seating, you know, and it's just who's going to wrestle. I think we've talked about, going to talk about that, but you know, you can't overlook anybody in that small of a bracket with that quality of a field. And so it was nice to see that again, Kyle had an opportunity and he didn't waste it. You know what I mean? And similar, I would say for Gilman, going back to him, because think of the gut wrenching loss he had. You had the Russian who just squeaked by in the first 2 rounds. It looked like the weight cut was hurting him. You know what I mean? And he got stronger, you know, as he got into the finals and away from the weigh, and he looked better and stronger. But you know, you're Gilman, you lose first round, and you've got to still, you know, regather quickly. You know, you've got to gather yourself quickly and say, okay, now my job's to get bronze. That's what I got to do, because you may have just spent the last 4 or 5 years of your life thinking about gold, right? That's how you got to think. That's how you got to train. You got to think like an Olympic champ. You got to train like an Olympic champ. And then through whatever, I've got to readjust. I've got to, hey, I got to get what I can get. Yeah. And they did that. And then props to those guys for keeping their heads up and coming back strong and representing themselves. Like I said, making the most of that opportunity.
Only guy we haven't touched on probably is Kyle Snyder, who took silver at 97.
Yep.
You know, that the build up to that gold medal match was pretty incredible, and the match definitely didn't disappoint.
No, it was, you know, it's a great match. It always will be, right? Those guys, you know, they're both going to go back to the drawing boards and figure some things out. So, you know, that's a coin flip to me every time you walk out. You know what I mean? Nobody separated themselves. I know Sajalayev, right, is kind of the pound for pound guy in a lot of people's eyes, and he's won the last couple. The margins are so small for victory there that, you know, to me, it's who's right on that day, you know, and maybe just a little cleaner with their tactics or kind of how they're approaching their match. So that's going to be a heck of a rivalry for a long time. I hope, right, that continues for years to be something we get to watch.
Absolutely. I'd love to hear everybody's take on this. Who had the most impressive Olympic wrestling performance? Corey, you got a take?
I mean, for me, it's Gable, no doubt. Like, the dude was just, he rolled everyone to the finals. And then he had the most dramatic, you know, most impressive win. Wasn't that the guy he was wrestling was like a 3-time world champion in the finals, if I'm not mistaken?
Petrashvili had won the last 3.
He won the last 3 world titles. So he is undeniably the greatest in the world. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter to Gable. He went out there and got the gold, you know, he was not defeated. He was not mentally defeated. It just, what he did to those guys in the early rounds was phenomenal.
Demoralizing.
Just unbelievable. He won his first 2 matches in less than 6 minutes combined. Like, bro, this is the Olympics. You're not supposed to be able to do that. And he did it, and he didn't break a sweat. And it was awesome. It was just really, it was so cool, because we all thought he's good. You know, we know he's great, but we need to see that he's all-time great. He's fantastic. It was so cool to see.
Oh, and he's 21 years old.
Yeah. We could do a whole nother show on forecasting his future, because there's so many interesting opportunities for a heavy out there. You know,
I'm sure he's got a lot of people staying tuned to see what he's going to do. So I'm sure. I would say for me, it's a tie. I think what Tamira Mensah-Stock did and how she captivated, you know, probably the world, and the way she did it and kind of her energy, it was a really big high. And then I'd say Gable as well, right? Just pick one from each who really, I think, capitalized on and captivated us, you know, as we're watching them. I would go with those 2 for me.
Yeah, you guys You guys stole everything I could have.
That's what happens. You let us go first.
On any of that.
Well, I mean, right, like everybody else. I mean, David. Obviously it's been great with Yazdani, but he's beat him before, and they've seen each other. And Adeline, like I said, she's been a staple, a fixture in there. So, I think those two were great moments for the United States wrestling.
Absolutely.
Just with the asterisk for like we talked about off the top, NBC's coverage, to devote that kind of time and those kind of resources to this sport. Also Jordan Burroughs and John Smith.
I'm glad you brought that up, because as you were talking, that's what I was thinking, is we should probably throw a shout out to those guys.
Yeah.
They were awesome.
They were phenomenal.
Yep. I know they got a lot of Twitter love too. Like everybody loved what they were doing and appreciated what they were doing. And so certainly I felt the same way. John's very insightful, got a lot of experience. And so, you kind of really enjoy listening to his years of experience and what guys need to maybe be doing or thinking in certain moments. And then I've always just felt like, JB is, got that charismatic delivery about him. You know what I mean? Very well spoken. And then obviously what he kind of brings in terms of, his honors and awards, carries a lot of weight as well. So I thought they did a tremendous job. I would even say, and I cannot remember their names, but the two color commentators who were with them did great.
It was just one. And I can't think of his name either, but he was great.
Well, they had a woman though in studio with JB.
You're right. Okay. Yes.
And my wife and I, Carol, were even talking about it. I thought she did a great job personally of asking some very insightful questions and seemed like genuinely really interested in having a candid discussion about wrestling. Sometimes you get people who don't understand wrestling and it's just ask the question and on we go. And I really enjoyed her and Jordan's commentary conversations in studio. And then I know the gentleman was working with John, during the matches. So yeah,
for sure.
I thought they did a great job.
Two things that I'd like to add on that too as well. Starting with Coach Smith, and I say that purposefully because he could not take the coach out of himself. Yeah. Watching him call, and I love that they didn't try and make him. You know what I mean? Like they just let him do him.
Yep.
And watching him like essentially coach wrestlers on the commentary.
Coach the officials.
Yeah.
Whistle in your pocket.
Yeah. Yes.
Put the whistle in your pocket.
Yes.
Oh man. He I think he gave people kind of like a behind the scenes look at what coaches are like during matches. Like it was I mean, I could only visualize as he's calling these matches. I'm visualizing him leaning and doing the coach moves as he was calling the matches too.
So 2 moments. I'm glad you brought this up, and we're probably getting long-winded here.
This is the fun stuff.
But there was 2 moments with Coach Smith that I really enjoyed. One was when I think Thomas Gilman collar tied maybe the Iranian hard. And the official blew the whistle and waved his finger at him. And John goes, caution for what? Collar tying? He's been doing that his whole life. Like, I thought, I was like, you could just tell he was irritated with the stop, with the whistle in your pocket. And then the other moment, which was out on Twitter, I know a lot, was when JB brought up scared money don't make money. And John brought that up. I love that. So
I've never heard that before. I like that. Who said that?
Scared money don't make money. So I mean, there was a lot of fun things in there too that a person, you were just entertained listening. That I thought was great.
Pretty funny. The other thing I wanted to kind of comment on was, I talked about Adeline Gray and her polish and grace and dealing with the situation. Man, did JB, for a guy who wanted to be there, and was very close to being there, right?
Yep.
For him to step back and be able to perform the way he performed as a broadcaster, like that had to be hard for him. There had to be some very difficult moments in watching somebody else go out there and do what he wanted to be doing. And he was fantastic about it. Like he showed the utmost, like, relaxed, polish, for lack of a better word.
No, I would completely agree. He, but not surprising, I guess, right? Like, I know you bring that up and you mention it, and it's all true. At the same time, that's not surprising to me, just based on who he is and who he's been, and kind of how he's grown as a person over the years, from the young athlete when he was first at Nebraska to now, where he's at in his life with his family. And, it looks like he's pretty at peace with things. Doesn't mean the fire's not still burning. I mean, I know he's in there, he's got goals, and he's that guy who, he'll get you, don't sleep on him. He'll get you. So, but I would always, just like you spoke about with Adeline, the grace and the polish and the way he conducts himself, is not surprising at all. And just, nice to see that. I think he's putting himself in position for more career opportunities down the road whenever he does hang it up.
I would imagine so. For sure.
It probably helped that they were calling from off-site, that they weren't allowed to be in the arena. I believe they were in Miami doing those calls in a broadcast center, as NBC did with a lot of their coverage. But yeah, he's definitely got a future for whenever he decides to leave the shoes on the mat that last time. Just closing the loop is Jason Knapp. That is the name of the play-by-play man.
Thank you.
With them.
He's awesome.
And I thought the best thing that he did during the coverage, and young broadcasters could learn a lot from this, is he stayed the hell out of the way. You bring, you call what needs to be called, and then you let the experts do their thing, and he did a great job of that. So kudos yep. around the horn there. I know we wanted to talk a little bit, Tony, about. One sec.
Can I say one more thing, Corey? What we're talking about broadcasters, and we're talking about voices and whatnot, I did want to give a shout out to Jason Bryant. Jason Bryant was the PA announcer, a former guest on the show and a friend of the podcast. Jason was into, you talk about people not being in the venue. Yeah. Jason was the PA announcer in the venue for the wrestling. And it was pretty cool to hear his voice on television, calling out the various, the medalists and calling people to the mat and so on and so forth. It was pretty wild.
Yep. Jason is dedicated as they come.
So Corey, I apologize. By all means, transition.
That's good. We've been talking a lot about JB and Tony, having coached someone who achieved at that level, having coached someone who goes on to win Olympic gold. Just what's that like to be on the early stages of somebody's great career development like that?
Yeah, I think, it's what makes you really excited about coaching, because it shows you what's possible, right? I mean, you had a young athlete. Most people probably know about JB's story. It wasn't instant success, right? Like his freshman year, there was a lot of adversity in his career. So to watch a guy climb, from he wasn't at greatness, right, at the first step of the mountain, and take ownership of his career and find new ways to get better, and all these little details, and to continue to motivate himself year after year was exciting in terms of it just keeps you motivated as well, because you have an athlete who's taking your advice. And I don't mean just me, and he had a lot of people, right? Coach Manning, Coach Snyder, and those guys around him, but he would take all the things you would give him, and he would use them and get better with them, and come out with his own version of who he wanted to be within what you were kind of trying to do. And it just was exciting. It was incredibly motivating for me to be on that ride. And you learn as much from those guys as you teach them too, right? Like, you kind of figure out as a young guy, I've always said this, you try to impart a lot of knowledge, and you always want to be talking and coaching. But as you get older, sometimes just sitting back, watching, listening to your kids, they'll tell you where they need to go or what needs to happen. And then you can help guide them and mentor them in that way. And so I just felt like I learned as much from JB as hopefully the few things he learned from me, but incredibly motivating and keeps that passion going when you have guys that are on that journey and on that ride.
I think a fun follow-up to that, Tony, in addition to coaching guys like Jordan Burroughs and James Green and Jake Herbert, guys that have achieved at that kind of level, you had a new experience at this Olympics that, I don't know how much thought you've given to this, but you coached someone who then in turn coached an Olympic gold medalist.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm speaking of Casey Cunningham, the assistant at Penn State, who's in the corner for David Taylor.
Yeah. That's, and that's interesting. You bring that up because, what I was thinking, and talk about Casey real quick in a second, but what I was thinking, and I want to give a shout out to all of those personal coaches too. We just talked a lot about the individual athletes, but I'm telling you, the amount of time and investment that those coaches put into those athletes, wrestlers, is phenomenal. I mean, I know Casey, I saw him earlier this summer at an event, and I'm asking him how his family's doing. He said, they're doing great, but he doesn't get to see him that often because there's this training camp and that training camp. And then he's doing this, it just was a summer leading up to the Olympics where, my goodness, the man was gone. He was gone more than he was at home. And so, a shout out to every one of those personal coaches who was with those athletes at the Olympics. They deserve a huge shout out for their commitment as well. But yeah, Casey was first national champ at Central Michigan. I was a young assistant coach, and Casey was a trailblazer. Won a national title his senior year at 157 pounds, and hardworking guy that I have a lot of respect for what he's done. Where he's come from and the work he's put in, and like I said, the work that goes into that. So a lot of respect for the coaches who develop these relationships with these kids. And then, and I call them kids, they're not kids, they're men and women. They're always kids when they come in though, right? That's what you got to understand. They're like 17,
but you're
years
old
coming in. Yes. That's
you're old.
Gable's still only 21, but he's a man. He's a man. So,
yes, sir.
But yeah, I mean, you start with these young people, right? And they're super young. You're recruiting them when they're 15, 16, maybe they're in your program at 17. And so you go on that journey together, right? Like that's what I love about the sport of wrestling. That's what I love about, Casey, is you go on these journey with these athletes together. You're there to support them and help guide them. And you tell them you're going to be there every step of the way. And that's what I like about, Casey, as well as these other coaches, like we said, Brad Harper, he's coaching high school, but he's still putting a lot in with Sarah Hildebrandt. He's been there every step of the way. And that's what I appreciate about the sport is those relationships and that commitment and the relationship you build with those kids.
Yeah, I think, you bring up Sarah, and I think that's an interesting point. You look at a young woman who has trained at the highest level and, has traveled all over the world, all over the country to train with different people. And she gets her shot to go to the Olympics. And who's she take with her? She takes the guy with her that's been there from when she first laced him up, in high school and all coming up. And I thought that was really, really cool.
No doubt. As had been the case too with, I point to JB, right? He did a majority of his career until just this year with Nebraska. And then that's what I like, because as I said, the investment is high. Like these kids come through your program and you've known them since they were teenagers, and you're, like you said, you're on a journey together. And that's what it's about. That's what I think I really appreciate about the sport.
Yeah. Cory, you got anything else today?
You mentioned already, Coach, so we're running long. I don't know that we want to get into RTCs and their role in the success here, but I feel like that's a longer topic than we've probably got time for today. We might have to push that one to next episode.
Nope, that's great. I know we got long-winded today, but very deserving, and very exciting to talk about the Olympics and the success we had.
I mean, we can only do this every 4 years or so. So
yeah, not like it's a regular thing.
No, right.
Well, 3 years now. It's coming fast, right?
Yep.
Paris will be here before we know it.
Can't wait.
So I will say, I got to ask you guys this. I got into a bit of a Twitter spat right before we got on the show. So I have to ask you guys this question. You can go vote on the Twitter poll. When I say the Black Album, what musical artist do you think of?
Tony?
I don't got one. I don't think you can't ask me a musical question. My wife would tell you I'm tone deaf and I know nothing. So
it's Metallica.
Is that
no, it's Jay-Z.
No, it's
Corey.
Metallica.
No, it's Jay-Z.
Okay, but it's Metallica. So
you and Paul Sadler can go have fun together.
it's the single greatest workout album ever, front to back.
If you say so.
If you put that on in the weight room, I'm gonna go move some serious iron right now. And I'm an old broken down man.
I won't see you there.
Okay.
You see,
yeah, you'll
Tanner's
be too busy
deflated
listening to
now.
Jay-Z.
See, he was hoping to get the win. Now
I don't know that I was really hoping. I mean, like I said, there's a Twitter poll out there that Sadler posted, and I haven't really been following it too closely because we've been on the show, obviously. But I'm really interested to see what the masses say.
Who put up the poll? You?
Sadler.
Sadler? Okay.
Go vote against me. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Yes, because you're wrong. Sorry.
You can ask my wife. It's not the first time.
No, that's Metallica's winning. It's not close. Okay.
So disappointed. So disappointed.
Oh Lord.
All right. That's all I got.
All right, we'll leave it there. We're gonna use some Metallica-like music on the outro here, guys. It's been great. We'll see y'all down the road. Boiler up.